I'm here in the absolutely beautiful Malheur National Forest in Oregon. This place is absolutely isolated. I have not seen anyone. I can yell at the top of my lungs and not a soul will answer. So I don't know how far the closest person is. Miles and miles, maybe a dozen miles, who knows? So I started thinking, when you're isolated like this and you're traveling alone and you're traveling for weeks, months, even years on end, how does that differ from camping over the weekend? I was a weekend warrior. I used to go out and camp for a weekend, and it was great. But there are a lot of differences, and so let's talk about some of those differences. First of all is food and water. When it comes to food, if I was going out for a weekend, I would carry all these recipes, all the ingredients for recipes to be able to make some great meals. The trouble with that when you're traveling for long distances, refrigeration, and I have a refrigerator freezer in the back seat of the truck there, what used to be the back seat. And I would have meat and dairy products, and all that kind of stuff. But the problem is trying to clean all that up, because you want to conserve water when you're camping for long term. So you may go up into a forest spot like this or on the Bureau of Land Management land and camp for 2 weeks. And water becomes critical, because water is the thing that will drive you back to civilization unless you have proper filtering equipment. So I'm very, very conservative, even though I do have filtering equipment on board. The way that I clean things is I will actually just tear off a third of a narrow sheet of paper towel, and I'll wet it and I'll wipe down, and I'll continue to do that until the item is clean. So I may use one paper towel that's been wetted, each one of the thirds, to clean the cup that I drank out of. So that's one thing, is water, being very conservative. I do not shower. I'm sorry, sorry to admit that. But what I do instead is, in the evening when I'm ready to crawl up into the tent, I will take a microfiber cloth. I'll dampen it. It's not soaked or anything, but I dampen it with some water. And then I will scrub my arms, my face, a few other places. And then I can get up into the sleeping bag, and I know that I'm not carrying all that dirt into the sleeping bag and my sheet. So that helps conserve water too, doing that. So water is critical. I'm carrying 18 gallons on board, and that'll last for a while. But again, conservation is the way to go with all of that. Of course, I carry a lot of everything, sometimes double or triple. I don't know, a toothbrush, for instance. I'm not going to carry just one like I would on a weekend. I may have 2 or 3. In fact, with my electric one, I have like 4 heads, because I'm going to be gone for about 4 months. So you're carrying more gear than you normally would be. Navigation aids too. Of course, if you're going out for a weekend, you definitely want navigation aids. But in my case, when I'm traveling like this, I'm always thinking and looking for the next place to camp. And so I don't want to be caught in the dark trying to find a place to camp. And I've done it on this trip. Instead, I want to arrive about 5, 6, 7 in the evening, if it's getting dark around 9 or 9:30, and get established, be able to make a meal, brush my teeth, and get into the camper as it's turning dark. You don't want to be out in a national forest by yourself in the dark with bears and wildcats, mosquitoes, those type of things. So by the time it's dark, I'm already in the tent. Just briefly, here's how I find the places, beautiful places like this. is I first start off with the Gaia GPS app, and I have the pro subscription to that. And I will zoom in on places in the forest or the BLM land, looking for where off the main trail there's a spur and it ends. And so I think, well, maybe that's a campsite, but you never know. There could be a building there. There could be power lines, and so it's a utility access point. And so the next step is I copy the coordinates from Gaia GPS into Google Earth, and I'm using Google Earth Pro. It's free. And so I paste those coordinates in, and I'll actually zoom in on the area looking to see, what it is. Is it a possible campsite, or is it a place that I don't want to be? And a lot of times you can even see if there's a campfire ring there or something like that. So that really, really helps to look at that. The other thing that I like about it is then you can swirl, you can go 360 degrees looking around you and see, well, if I was here, what would my view look like? Is it a great photography place? Those type of things. So it's really good. Then the next step is that I take those same coordinates, if I found a place that I like, and I type them into my Garmin Overlander, which is a larger GPS, and it has trail information, those type of things. And about 75-80% of the time it will get me close or right to the exact spot that I need to be. I can always go back and look at the Gaia GPS app to see the roads, provided that I previously downloaded the area so that when I lose the cell phone signal out here in the middle of nowhere, I'm still able to see the trails and those type of things. And I'm constantly aware of my keys. I mean, it's one thing to be locked out of your truck or your tent area if you're with a group of people. It's another if you're totally alone and you have no cell phone service, possibly not even any radio connection. You want to be very, very careful with your keys. And so I've implemented procedures to make sure that I don't ever lock my keys into the cab of my truck or in the cabin tent area of my Alu cab. And I'm going to talk about those in another video. I always have my bear spray on me out here. I also have personal protection on me. And let me just make a note about that. I have never met anybody where I felt threatened in the least out here in the middle of nowhere. The people that I've run into, if they're overlanding, camping like I am, they're friendly and they're open. A lot of times they tend to be off by themselves, and so I hesitate to approach them. But in those cases where we've interacted, it's always been great. I communicate whenever I can. I call my family at least once a day if I have cell phone access, particularly as I'm traveling, and I let them know where I'm headed in that conversation. However, there's been many times when I will deviate from that, and I'll take off somewhere else because I see a road that I like or whatever. And so the lifesaver in all of that is that I have a Garmin InReach. So the Garmin InReach is like a Garmin Mini. It's a little miniature thing about so big. And that is sending up a signal every 10 minutes to a satellite, and then that gets down and written into a map so that family members and friends that I share that link to that map with can see in real time almost exactly where I'm at. Also, the other good thing about that Garmin InReach is there's an SOS button on it. And so if I get into trouble and I need help, then I can push that button. And again, it's satellite, so there's a team there monitoring that, and they will call my contact person and say, hey, have you heard from Steve? What's going on? And most likely that person will say, no, I haven't heard from him. And they will dispatch a team to find me and try to rescue me. I'm also very, very cognizant, probably more so than if I'm a weekend warrior, of using knives and axes and other sharp tools. It's just one little slip and you can be hurt seriously and in serious trouble. There's no hospital to run to. There's nobody to turn to for help. And so I am really extremely careful with those type of things. I remember watching an episode of Alone, where they have survivalists that are dropped off in the fall in Canada, in Alaska. I guess it was Alaska last that I watched. And one of those individuals hurt themselves like that and had to tap out. It can happen to anybody. So, I use extreme caution on that. Even getting up and down out of the tent, I don't want to slip and fall and hurt myself. So again, just every little thing, be real conscious of it if you're alone and miles from anywhere. Probably the biggest difference, kind of saving this towards last, is organization and cleanliness. When I packed the truck, I tried to be very frugal and say, do I really need this? What would happen if I didn't have it with me? And so I tried to eliminate as much as I can, but still I am carrying a ton of stuff in that truck. And so every couple of days I think, oh, maybe I'm not using this. Maybe I can find another little place to pigeonhole this that's more inaccessible and harder to get to. And then if I need it, I can dig it out. And so I am reorganizing stuff as I go. And the problem with that is after you get used to finding something in a certain spot, but then you move it, you go, where did I put that? I guess it's age related, who knows? So the other is cleanliness. I talked about cleaning myself, but also cleaning the truck, particularly in the back end, the cabin part there. Dirt that gets into the inside there is going to end up in my sleeping bag. That's the way that I look at it. So I try to keep everything clean in there. And traveling down these dusty trails, there was a crack below the door, and dust was getting in. And also when it's really super cold outside, cold air gets in there. So my cousin and I went to a hardware store here a couple of days ago, and we bought some of this weather stripping that you use on windows and stuff. And I put it there. The tape is not holding on the back of that stripping. And so now I'm using Gorilla Glue to kind of hold it in place. I don't know how long that will last, but it is so far keeping the dirt out. And so I'm able to clean things up without getting dirt back in there. I also have a mat, grooved rubber mat, just on the inside of the when you first step in, and so that catches a lot of the dirt. The step itself is just kind of a metal grating, and I stamp my feet to clean them as I get in there. And then I use microfiber cloths on the surface of the mat, the flooring, to kind of clean it off. And I have a 12-volt vacuum cleaner that I use. So all of the things are trying to keep things clean, and it's important. You don't want to be running to the laundromat every week or two to clean your sleeping bag. I think the other thing that's different is if I was on a weekend, I would still have my normal sleep habits to go back to when I got back home, because I'm a guy that stays up late. I stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning, 4 sometimes, and then I sleep in late. Well, here, because I'm getting to bed when it's dark, I'm up before it's light a lot of times. And so that's, after a long time, that's going to change my habits, and that's probably for the better. So those are some things that I just thought of this morning as I was thinking about this. You've probably got some other ideas on what the differences are. Even if you're not a person that goes out on long-term camping, you probably might have some ideas that I could use. And so comment down below. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe and hit that bell. I really, really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the next one.